Welcome to the What It Takes podcast, where we talk to successful entrepreneurs, leaders, and CEOs across different industries. I'm your host, Darren, and in each episode, we're going to figure out how they got through difficult times, but most importantly, what it really takes to succeed. So whether you're just starting out your career or you're looking to level up your business game, my goal is to give you real insights and practical lessons from people who have achieved what you want. Welcome back to the What It Takes podcast. I'm your host, Darren, and I'm joined today by Ray Cooke. Ray, huge welcome to you. You are someone who's founded Dublin's leading real estate business, which is really cool. And I'm very excited to talk about you, your journey, what you've been through. But first of all, huge welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this since before Christmas, since we spoke, and looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm great. I'm, like I said, good. Very, very busy. Thankfully, it's the Dublin property market is crazy.
Yes. Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about what is it that you do today?
Okay, so I have a couple of companies. So I suppose the main company that I would have would be called Ray Cooke Auctioneers. We would obviously sell houses and apartments and properties in Dublin and the greater Dublin area. I suppose involved in that company, we would have Ray Cooke Lettings. We'd have commercial division as well, for your selling and letting commercial. We deal with all bank valuations and obviously property management. We have another company as well, which is a financial services company as well, Ray Cooke Financial Services. I don't know where we came up with these names, but Ray Cooke Financial Services, which is a mortgage. We would be a mortgage broker, life assurance broker, and pension broker. And then we have another company as well. The third company is like a buyer's agent company called Eldrin, which is a buyer's agent company. So, you're looking to buy a property in Dublin, Darren, you'd use our services because you're outside of the country, or maybe you're inside of Ireland and you can't find a property. Obviously, the guys in the Eldrin then will help you buy a property. And also then as well, they're a relocation agent as well. So again, if you're coming into the Dublin market, like there's a huge shortage there, the rental side of things. So it's near impossible for you to find a rental property before you come over. So you end up staying in a hotel or maybe an Airbnb for maybe a month or two, which is obviously more expensive than renting. So we've those three companies, so we're kept busy.
Yeah, you have quite a lot. You have, three big companies now. It wasn't always like this, right? I mean, you started off as someone who was young in the hotel management business or in the industry there.
Yeah, so in Ireland, we obviously, it's called secondary school. So your primary school up to around 12 years of age, and then you go into secondary school, and then you go either onto a college or apprenticeship or go straight into work. So I wasn't great in school. Like I said, I was an average student. As it turns out, I found out I'm dyslexic. So, but at the time, obviously, I was very good at English, and I was very good at maths, and I was very good at technical drawing, which would be like architecture and stuff like that. But I was never good at obviously memorizing stuff, or I'd never be good at languages or bits and pieces like that. As it turned out, obviously I know why now, but at the time you're kind of going, Jesus, my memory is terrible and I can't work it out, and why does my mind not work like my friends or whatever. So I was kind of average enough in school, but I was always a good worker, and I had a couple of uncles that were in the hotel industry, and there was an apprenticeship role that I took there, a large chain at the time that they're not around anymore, they were bought out, but and I went down to a place called Kerry, which is down in the southwest of Ireland, a beautiful part called the Ring of Kerry, and I worked in a hotel down there in Park Nasilla. So I went into that for a couple of years. I started off there. I was 17 doing my leaving cert when I left school, and I went straight out then and started working, and it was great. I loved it. Now, the only thing was the pay is terrible, and you're working around 80, 90 hours a week, and you work every weekend, you work every Christmas or Easter, summertime. So any times you want to be off, that's the peak season. So it was good when I was young, and I learned a lot. I was dealing with a lot of older people, and I was living away from home as well as a 17 and 18 and 19-year-old, and I learned a lot. And I soon realized I wanted to get into the industry I was in the real estate market. So I gave that up when I was around 19 or 20, and I went to Australia when I was 21 and did like most backpackers did, and enjoyed myself probably a little bit too much for 12 months, and I came back, and then I got into the real estate market then as well, the property market after that when I was 22.
But going back to when you first decided to work within the hotel, what motivated you about that? What was interesting? What piqued your interest when it came to
I was a little bit different. Like if you asked me when I was 10 years of age what I wanted to be, I think I've been reminded of this several times that I want to be a millionaire. But like I said, so it didn't really matter what I was going to do. I wanted to be just successful, um, and I had in my head, because when I was in school, I worked in local pubs and that kind of trade, and I really enjoyed the work, and there was money to be made in it. So obviously going into the hotels, I had in my head, obviously as a 17-year-old, that I was going to own a chain of hotels, or pubs or bars or whatever.
Yes.
And this was the best way of getting a qualification and going into kind of hotel management. And that's honestly why I went into it. Also, as well, I never wanted to go to college for 4 years. Again, like I said, obviously not knowing at the time, but that didn't interest me, to go off and to be studying for 4 years. I like the practical side, the apprenticeship side, where you're working with your hands and you're working in the job. And even to this day now, I find the best people that I recruit are the people that I train myself, instead of them going off to college for 4 years and then they come out and they still haven't a clue. So they're better off coming and working with me for 2 years or even 1 year, and they'll know more in 12 months or 6 months with me than they would do in a 4-year course. And that was my thinking at the time. I'd go off into the hotels, learn my trade, get my qualification, and go off and own a chain of hotels.
That's very interesting. And I think that every young person has that level of motivation, because I think very often you talk to an entrepreneur or business owner and what they do today, and you ask them, well, what about when you were younger? What was your mindset like? What did you want to be? But for you, you've always had that level of, I want to be successful, I want to be a millionaire. And that for you seemed like the logical path. Then, so you went to Australia backpacking. Why did you do that? What was that about?
I was a very sensible, because I was very mature. When I was a young 17-year-old, where all of my friends would have been 18, 19 leaving school. I was a young leaving school at 17 doing my leaving cert, and I was always ahead of my time to a certain degree in relation to being a little bit more mature, knowing where I wanted to go. And obviously I was in the hotel 17, 18, 19, a lot of my friends were in college or they were doing apprenticeships. And I was kind of thinking, if I wait until they finish college or apprenticeships, they're going to be 22, 23. And I'm going to have to wait until I'm 22, 23 to go traveling. And then all of a sudden I'm 24, 25 coming back. And I knew when I was 18 or 19 that I wanted to get into the property market.
Yeah.
So, but in Ireland, I don't know what it's like where you live, but in Ireland, no one was employing a 19-year-old to sell a house. Even a 21-year-old or 22-year-old. Now, I was lucky when I was 17, I looked 22, and when I was 20, I looked 25, and now I'm 44 and I look 64. Unfortunately, I thought I might be like Benjamin Button to start getting younger looking as soon as I get older, but I'm not. But I was always, to answer your question, I always had a plan. I always knew what I wanted to do, and I knew then I'd go to Australia for a year, get it out of my system that I travelled, and come back and start my career. Whereas if I started, I was scared that if I started my career that in the property market, that I wouldn't leave and take a year off, So, because again, I always had in my head I was going to open my own offices, So, first of all, get into the property market, learn, and then open my own offices. So I always knew that I was going to be my own boss.
So you had this vision, you knew what you wanted, and you also said to yourself that if you just wanted to get this out of the way, you wanted to party or experience or travel, whatever it was, you wouldn't have that level of, what do young people call it today? FOMO, fear of missing out, right?
Yeah.
But then, okay, so you come back, and what happens next? Because now you've traveled, you've worked in the hotel for a few years. How do you end up in the property business, in the real estate business?
So what I did back then, you technically didn't need any qualifications to get into real estate. Nowadays, you need to have a college qualification, but back then in 2002, you didn't need it. So I just applied to every company in Dublin. I sent out, I can't remember, but it was probably 50, 70 CVs. And I did probably 10 interviews, 10 interviews anyway. I got offered 8 jobs, and obviously I took one. So I thought would work in my benefit, because there was other companies there that I would have been just like an admin for 6 to 12 months, and I was going to go, Jesus, I think I want to be. So the guy that I went with, I was basically out selling houses, within a month.
Yeah.
So, and I could start earning money, and I knew I'd outwork everyone, and I knew that I had the work ethic there, that I don't mind working 80 hours a week, providing my pay keeps going up and up and up, and it's a commission job and stuff like that. So I was of that mindset there, and it worked for me the first couple of years, because I did that, and within 6 months I'd come back from Australia, I put a deposit on my first house to buy, and then over the next couple of years bought more properties.
Incredible. And when you started this company, when you joined this company, what were some of the key things that you learned during that time when it came to selling properties?
It doesn't matter what you know, it's about getting on with people. So you could come in and you could have a master's and you could have degrees, you could have this and that, but if you can't communicate with people and you can't get on with people, you won't get anywhere. Especially it's a people business, the property businesses. So you have to have a personality. You could go out, if I'm going out to value your house, you're going to call out 2 or 3 agents, And at the end of the day, you're not going to go with the one that, show me your degree. You're going to go with the one that you like the best. That's going to do the best for you. That you can get along with this process, because it's a process. You're not selling a car or you're not selling a couch. You're selling probably one of the biggest assets you're going to own in life. So you want the right person doing it. And luckily enough, I get on with people, and people can see that. And people, like, I've built my business on the back of referrals, that I still have people coming back to me that from when I was 22 and I sold their house, or they bought a house off me, and they're coming back to me now 20 years later, or 22, 23 years later, and they're saying, we bought our first house off you, and you were great to deal with, and you advised and whatever. And it's great. I have other people there that I would have dealt with them, and all of a sudden they're ringing me up when their parents pass to sell their parents' houses and everything, which is great, because you have to get on with people. There's no point me coming along and saying, oh, well, back in 1989, this happened. No one bloody cares, when you're selling a property. And you also have to be, in our industry, you have to be a good negotiator. You have to be a good negotiator, and you have to have, as we'd say, a good set of negotiation skills, So it's simple as that.
And at the time, did you know that you were good at it? Did you know you had that ability to make people like you, or to be likable and gain their trust? And essentially, did you know that you had those skills, or was that something that you learned later in life?
No, I was always a team player. It doesn't matter what job I did. I was always a team player, because the way I look at it is there that if the team is doing well, I'll do well,
Yes.
So whether I'm working in a hotel and we're giving a super service to somebody, they're going to tell other people, say, wow, or the hotel stay was fabulous and we're definitely going to go back there, so giving a good service, being a team player, going above and beyond. So when I went and obviously worked with that company I started off with, I was a brilliant team player. Even though there was a lot of individuals and they're only just interested in themselves, I was a team player, and I always was, because the way I looked at it is, if my colleague is doing well and he's selling houses, people are going to see the sold sign going up there, and that means more people are going to ring into the office, and then I'm going to get some of that business.
Yes.
And if he doesn't sell his house, or he's not giving a service, or he's bad at his job, that's going to reflect on me as well. And I found there that if we worked as a team, it worked better, So.
And then, because you stayed in this business for a while until you founded your own company. How long were you in the company before you decided to go out and start for yourself?
I was probably 2 and a bit years. Yeah. So I think I was 22 going on 23. I was 22 when I came back from Australia and started it. So I set the business up when I was 24, and I opened my first office 2 weeks after turning 25.
That's incredible, man. 25, you're
And
40.
you know, the only reason I did, right, was my old employer died, okay?
Yeah.
And he was a great man, and unfortunately, he died. And he died around 3 or 4 weeks after his 40th birthday, massive heart attack.
No.
And his wife took over, and his wife didn't run the company like he did.
Uh,
Um, and, you know, she wouldn't give me a pay rise. Swear to God. And
that's how,
all I was looking for was a couple of €1,000.
that's
And,
how you lose talent.
I was earning her probably $250,000, and she was probably paying me 35 or 40,000 a year.
Yeah.
I went in and I wanted an increase, and she wouldn't give me she gave me a tiny increase. And I said, okay, no hassle. And then I
Yeah.
walked out of that, and I said, I'm going to set up my own.
They,
Straight away.
they,
Yeah, and that was in my mind. I said, right, okay, for what I'm bringing you in, I could run a small office on, you know, and I could have a secretary, and I could be, and you know, I could even bring in even more money then if I have someone helping me there as well. So, and then straight away, I walked out of that meeting and said, okay, thank you. So it was thanks to her that I've gone on to obviously do what I've done.
But I think what you were saying right there, I think the action that you did, I think that is an important trait for a successful person, right? To be able to speak their mind, to say, no, this is what I want. This is my worth. If you can't provide that, then I'm going to have to do something else or find my own path instead of
Yeah,
allowing people to, because a lot of the times people don't speak up, right?
yeah.
They might, well, be worth, let's say they produce, you mentioned $250,000 in sales that you produce, and you were only paid, what is it, 35, 40,000 a year. Someone might go in your position and say, well, you know what, I'll try again in next year, right? And then they're stuck at that. And then maybe next year comes and not much happens.
And yeah, and I totally agree with you there. Like, as in, like back then, and this, even though it's 20 years ago, but like a lot of people in Ireland didn't have broadband in their house. You know,
Mhm.
some people did. Like, I didn't even have a computer on my desk. Okay, so we were using everything from a paper basically. Okay, so people would come in, and I'd meet Darren, and all of a sudden I'd have Darren's details, and I'd be following up with Darren, and this could be 2 years ago. Or, Darren, did you ever buy a house, or come in and whatever?
Mhm.
And that's the way you'd have to build it. And she had two offices, and I was in one office, and I built my name up, and people were coming in to see me because I had sold Darren's house, and Darren recommended me to his sister and his
Mhm.
auntie and his neighbour. So people were coming in to see me. And then the other office that she had wasn't doing as well. And she knew there that because I was a brilliant team player, she'd move me over to that office to make that office successful.
Uh-huh.
So as a team player, maybe this is where I learned. She didn't pay me any extra, so when I left to go over to the other office, then I didn't get any extra money. But then I was starting back with nearly zero because I had to build up my name and I had to build up my
Mhm.
contacts. And then I was probably over there 9 months, and I built that office up. But then the old office went downhill completely because, again, all the individuals in it, they weren't pulling together. And then she replaced me with somebody else who wasn't obviously as good as I was. So she moved, and then she went to move me back again. And I said, okay, well, look, you, you, you have to pay me more. Like I said, because again, I had built it up. Even I built it from,
Yeah,
and I
it
built it
makes
up
sense.
to, I was earning commissions of 250,000 a year, 220 to 250,000 a year, and she wasn't paying me. I said, look, you're going to have to pay me because I lost out there for 6 months or for 3 or 4 months building up. So, like I said, it was just I've learned that myself as a employer. I always think, what will the agent think? Put myself in their
Mm,
shoes when I'm going into
mm,
this conversation,
mm.
because like you said, you don't ask that question, or you wait another year or whatever. You have to look after yourself. I think if you are a team player, an employer should be able to see that and say, you know what, Darren is a great guy there. He's actually okay. He might have been my number one sales guy, but you know what, he does so many other things there as well.
Mm.
There's a great atmosphere in the office, and that office is brilliant. And you have to look at those type of things. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, you were essentially describing an A player, right? Which you were. And I think that just from studying businesses, A players or high achievers within any company, that those types of employees are some of the most important. So it's like when you do identify that as a business owner, that you do have one of those, ideally you hire them, right? So you know exactly what to look for and then you hire them. But even if they kind of show up after a while, you want to make sure that you keep them happy, essentially. So Ray, then moving ahead, you now started your business and opened up your first office at 25 years old. What was the journey for you in getting your first client? What was that like for you? And how long did it take? I mean, you obviously had some experience, but you
Yeah,
still
like,
got to
like
build
I had
it
a
up.
couple of contacts there that I knew they were going to be selling and stuff like that. So I was in their ear, but it takes a while because again, you didn't have social media back then. You
Mm.
couldn't put yourself out there and fake it until you make it. So you had to just start with one property and then
Hmm.
get your sign up and then do a brilliant service. And then we started doing small little advertising in local newspapers and local leaflets. We hand delivered leaflets around the whole area. So we'd print them off and we'd go out in the daytime, or I say me, went out in the daytime, even mail dropping people, etc., etc. And then you get another one. And then you get another one, and then you get another one, and it's slowly but surely. And you just have to make sure that you're contactable 7 days a week. If someone rings you at 10 o'clock on a Sunday, you answer that phone, or you bring them back straight away. And that's how I built the reputation. Was that, geez, he's great to deal with. Now look, it was 2005, 2006, so property prices were going up. So you were lucky that we were selling, and all of a sudden prices were going up. So people are
Hmm.
thinking, geez, he got me 50,000 over the asking price. He's great. But in fairness, it was the market as well. But we gave a great service, and yeah, it was difficult. Like, you weren't obviously making huge money, and we only started getting going in 2006, and then obviously we know what happens after 2006, 2007, 2008.
Yeah, yeah. During that height where property price went up, obviously you're saying that you worked a lot of hours, you put in the hours, but the commission wasn't as high, right? How long did it take you until you f finally got to that stage where you thought to yourself, oh, okay, now I'm a little bit more stable, or I'm getting closer to that level of success that you wanted when you were still young?
I didn't, like I said, because for me to set the business up, I had to go off and remortgage my house.
Mm.
Because again, I had a couple of houses at that stage. I had one house at that stage, and then a couple more houses after that. And then, so I got the money from that. I got bank loans. So I had finance. That's what kind of kept me going. I had hired somebody, so it was me and an office manager in the office. How it kept going, it was one step at a time, and it's very hard to say when you're setting up one. Like I said, it's very hard to go into a business and say, "Oh, I'm earning €1 million straight away." Nowadays, you probably can with social media, but back then it was a lot harder because you didn't have that advertisement. You had to go on
Hmm.
your name. You had to go on people recognizing you. We did little things like advertisements that we did. We gave people a free removal, as in we had a van there and we hired a truck there to when they were moving houses, moving properties there to one house to the next house, and we'd
Yeah.
offer them a free removal. So we came up with little gimmicks like that at the time, and slowly but surely it built up. And we got more sales on, and like I said, we went in 2006, and then all of a sudden I had 10 sales on, I had 20 sales on, I had 30 sales on, 40 sales on, and obviously a lot of those properties would have been sale agreed, and things were starting to turn. Like my first full year in 2006, I lost 70,000
You
on paper.
lost 70,000?
Yeah, on paper. I lost.
How does that work?
Well, I had spent more than I had brought in.
Uh-huh.
So, and it was minus 70,000, minus 72,000 or something like that my
And,
first year.
and these were costs, free movable, like yeah.
Wages, rent,
Yeah.
rates. Obviously, I have to pay myself a wage, bits and pieces like that there as well. Obviously, expenses. If you're doing any advertising, if you're obviously advertising on any of these newspapers, you have to put money, pay for it, and stuff like that. So there was loads of things like that. Now, again, we kept costs down, but then the sales were coming in. But it takes you 6 months to get paid on a sale.
Yeah.
So if I put your house up for sale today, it won't sell for 5 or 6 months. So I won't get my
Yeah.
money until the day you sell your house.
Yeah.
Is in Ireland, that's when you get your fee, So then, like I said, obviously that happened, and look, and I could see the bigger picture because the sales kept coming on. So I knew I was getting 2,500 here or 5,000 commission here, and it was building up and building up and building up. So I was confident that I was going to go. And then 2007 was really going really, really well. I probably had 200, 300,000 properties sale agreed in my pipeline to go through. And then what happened was in 2000 and sorry, end of 2000, there was an election coming up in 2007, And in Ireland, I don't know what it's like in the other countries, but in Ireland, all the politicians come out with all the fake promises. If we get into government, we'll do this. The government will do that, or da. And in Ireland, there was stamp duty. So when you buy a property, you pay a tax on it as well. And the tax was really, really high. Like, so it could have been 10, 15%. So if you bought a property, for €1 million, you could be paying 150,000 tax. And then the government, all the politicians came out and said, if we get into government, we'll abolish stamp duty. So anyone that was sale agreed with me said, oh, we might just wait 6 months because we're going to be paying 20 or 30,000 stamp duty here. We might as well wait 6 months and see if that government or that political party gets in, and we could save 30,000 or 40,000
by abolishing.
And then from that period, I think until the budget was in December, and then I think it was January or February, Lehman Brothers collapsed. Around that time. So like I said, maybe it was 2008, 2000, I might be getting my year mixed up, but it was around that time. So basically, within 6 months, I stopped really earning money, even though I was starting to make money. And then all of a sudden, it was like someone tightened the tap. Instead of loosening the tap and letting the water flow, they tightened it. And my business, I only had one stream of income, which was house sales at that time. And all of a sudden they stopped. I think between September and Christmas time, I had like 2 or 3 sales that went through instead of 25, 30 going through. So
that's a massive difference, right?
It was a massive difference. So I probably brought in 10,000 euros instead of bringing in 100 or 130,000.
Yeah.
It was massive for a small company,
Yeah. How did that, because then you're mentioning that was from September to December, you sold, those 2 properties. But then 2008 financial crash, it was, how did you sort of get through all of this? And how did you keep your business going throughout all of this?
At that stage, there was 3 of us. So myself and kind of 2 admins, or kind of like a junior negotiator, and it was tough. It was tough. I had to let one of them go. To kind of, she wanted to go traveling, and I kind of said, "Out you go traveling now," And she kind of left, and it was tough. It was really tough. Like 2008 and halfway, like those 18 months, like I call it beans on toast time. Like it was really, there was sometimes I didn't have money to feed myself. I had to go I said this on another podcast, I had to go to my mum's to get fed.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have money. Like I had a big mortgage, interest rates went up as well at the time, inflation went up. We've just seen that after COVID, inflation and prices went up, and I didn't have money. So I was paying myself a wage just basically to cover my mortgage. And then, like I said, I didn't know how I survived. But luckily enough, I had a good guy in the bank, because I had loads of debt. I had loads of credit card loans. I had personal loans. I had this and that. And I had 5 or 6 different loans coming out every month, which was killing me. And luckily enough, I had a good guy in Bank of Ireland that said, right, because I wasn't making any money, and I was going to default. And he brought me in, and in fairness, I had a good relationship with him, and he was very the typical Irish way, and obviously, I don't know if I can say bad language on this or anything, but he turned around and, he asked me to do a business plan for him. Yeah. And I went off and said, I'm going to sell 120 houses, I'm going to rent 120 properties, I'm going to make $500,000. And I brought it to him, and obviously there was a lot of bad language, and he told me to cop onto myself and redo it, and I did that 3 or 4 times. And eventually I sold, I'm going to sell 20 houses, I'm going to rent 20 houses. So I got it all the way down, and I'm going to bring in 90,000 euros a year. And he had it down to that. And then he actually went off and consolidated all my loans. So I had one loan going out a month, and that saved me.
Oh, wow.
That saved me. Because then I knew, right, worst case scenario, I need 2,000 or whatever it was, 5,000 a month to pay here. And once I could pay that, anything over that was bonus money. Mm-hmm. So that was my target every single month, to bring in whatever it was, 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 euros a month. And once anything over that, then I had made money. And now there was a couple of months where we didn't make it, and I didn't pay myself money or whatever. I didn't pay myself a wage or whatever it was. And what we started doing then as well was renting out properties. Mm-hmm. We weren't selling properties, and we started renting out properties, because the good thing about rentals is You know, like I said, with a house sale, it takes 6 months. With a rental, you were getting paid within the month straight away.
Yeah.
So it was cash flow.
Yes.
And I started renting properties, and then I said, right, we're gonna manage them then as well. So we were getting a letting fee and we were getting a property management fee. So all of a sudden, I had cash flow coming in, and then that was like a snowball. We'd take on 10 properties a month, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the year, I had 150 properties. And then the following year, we added on another 150. We had 300 properties, 400 properties, 500 properties. Now to the business, now we've a couple of thousand properties there. We've over 2,000 properties managed now, you know.
Yeah.
So because that alone is a business. So but that's what got me through the recession. Like in 2011, 2012, we sold 13 properties. You know, whereas in last year we sold over 800.
Yeah, a huge difference.
So it's a huge difference. But like again, through the recession, where in Ireland there was a lot of snobbery around the estate agent market, I was proud to say I was a letting agent. You know, where people would say, "Oh, you're a letting agent." Oh my God! But you know what? It kept my doors open. I didn't lose any properties. During that time, I actually opened a second office as well in 2009 as well, in the middle of it. And we grew from there. I came out stronger because I was running my business better, because at the time, because there was so much money in Ireland, it was just kind of, oh, sure, that's only 2,000 euros. Oh, that's grand, 5,000 euros. And that was the way you were running your business.
And, you know, like when you, because you're saying how you got through it was obviously consolidating all the 5 loans that you had, you know, you had to hit the 5K. But going into it, you know, you're saying that you didn't have, sometimes you didn't have the money to feed yourself. Did you ever get to a point where you said to yourself, you know what, I don't know if I'm going to get through this? Did you have doubt? Or was there always this level of conviction, like, I am going to make this, I'm going to do this?
I did loads of that. Like, there's no point saying I didn't have, because again, my parents aren't business people. My brothers aren't business people. A lot of my friends I couldn't talk to. Like they were actually in Thailand at this stage. I remember so they were in Thailand. They was back to that. So they stayed in Thailand and Australia and New Zealand, and so like you didn't really have anyone to talk to. And any other business people were dealing with their own shit, you know, because they were in financial pressure themselves. And it was just, the way I looked at it is, worst case scenario, the bank come in and take all my 3 properties and the business. I'll go over and work in a bar in America. That was what my attitude was. I said, worst case scenario, I'll go home and live with my mum and dad, or I'll go, and I was of the attitude, I'll go and work in McDonald's. I'll go and, you know, worst case scenario, like I wouldn't be sitting at home getting money from the government, dole money from the government. So the way I looked at it was worst case scenario, you know. It couldn't get any worse, you know. Like there was some days the phone never rang, you know. The phone, and the only times the phone rang was when people were absolutely giving out to you, or they were taking business off you because you couldn't sell it. Like anytime I'd be ringing vendors back then, let's just say the value of the house went up to 450. Eventually, that house that was at 450,000 was probably worth around 100,000. Come 2010, you know, people forget that, you know, so they kind of really went down really low. So it was difficult times. It was just, it was a mindset. I'll put it this way: I drank a lot. So, I drank a lot. That was probably the only thing that kept me sane at the weekends. That was all. Yeah. So, like I said, honestly, I was in my, what age was I? I was probably, I was 27, 28, you know, and it was tough times, tough times.
But you got through it though, right? I mean, you're still standing today strong. You got a big team. When did you really hit that cycle of growth for you? So, you know, in 2009, you opened up the second office. At what point did it really start to, for you, in your experience, take off?
It probably tied into when I opened my 2015, 2016. I opened my third office in 2015. And probably around 2014, I bought a bank, believe it or not.
A bank?
Yeah, in Clondalkin. Well, no, the building, sorry. The building, not the bank, sorry, the building. And it was a distressed sale. Obviously, that it was EBS in Clondalkin. And they were basically a lot of them were closing down because of the recession and stuff like that. And I needed a bigger location because obviously my property management had kind of taken off. We had outgrown. We probably had 10 or 12 staff at that stage.
Yeah.
2011, 2012, but a lot of it was a letting business. Like I said,
Mm.
we were obviously we could have, 60, 70 houses for sale. But like I said to you, we were selling 13 houses in 2011, so we weren't selling that many. So the way we looked at the market started going up in Ireland. And because we were in two good locations in Dublin, in the kind of suburbs of Dublin, we started selling houses again. And it probably took off around 2014, 15. But if you're talking about when we added the petrol to it, it was probably 2015, 16, 17. And the reason that happened was probably tied in with social media.
I was going to ask about that. What was it that helped you grow, right? And you're saying this was social media?
Social media, 100%.
And what strategies did you deploy or employ to sort of drive that growth and expand the business?
We class ourselves like the Ryanair of, at the time when we were coming out of the recession, we classed ourselves like the Ryanair. Like I said, our fees were very competitive and cheaper. A lot of agents weren't doing lettings, and when they did do lettings, their fees were really, really high. My attitude was, I want to do volume.
Yeah.
Because if I do volume, a cheaper fee, and I'll get the letting and I'll get the property management, and then I'll hold on to them as a client. Okay?
Yeah.
Because then once they're property management, we're then in control of it and we're renting the property out. They're not going to go to another agent, and then that's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So keep our fees cheap and give a really, really good service and go from there, and go from there. And apologies about that. And go from there. And that was the model we kind of went on. And it was kind of no frills. This is your service. This is what we're going to do for you. If you don't like that, go up the road and let them charge you double what we're going to charge. But our service is going to be a million times better. And this is what we're going to do. And we have a big thing in our company: do as you say you're going to do. Okay. So if you say you're going to do something, do it. And we just built our name on the back of that. And what we did was then we kind of went into the social media with the same thinking. Sorry, I'm getting to the point now. We went into social media with the same thinking. And I was in Australia, and obviously Harvey Norman are a very well-known brand throughout Europe now. But at the time, they were an Australian company. And when I was in Australia, when I was 21, these Harvey Norman ads kept coming on TV with a real stupid voice. Hi, Harvey Norman here. And you're kind of going, Jesus, those Harvey Norman ads are stupid. But then, okay, I need to buy a laptop or I need to buy a washing machine. Harvey Norman. Let's go to Harvey. Straight away you think of Harvey Norman. So I was kind of thinking, those stupid, annoying ads. So when we started going into social media, I was just kind of going, right, we're going to be different from the other agents. We're going to talk in front of the videos. We're going to do videos. We're going to show pictures of everything. So if your property wasn't a very nice property or was an ugly property, agents wouldn't put that up on social media. They wouldn't even put it up on the websites, because they'd be embarrassed. They think it would damage their brand. Where we came along and we show everything, So we were very transparent with our properties. And then when social media came up, we started doing videos. So if you went onto social media, you'd be thinking, Jesus, those Ray Cooke videos are everywhere. But the whole point but then you'd ring me and say, oh, I'm thinking about selling my house. I see you. Everywhere I look, I see you, And then we built and built and built. And then I was able to open another office. And then I was able to go on the north side of Dublin, which is a completely different area. And we launched from there.
So if I understand you correctly, the essence, the core of this strategy for social media came because you saw an annoying ad while you were in Australia.
But I thought it was marketing genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So, because I wanted to ask you, because a lot of the times I'll talk to a lot of, guys, and they'll be like, yeah, you got to look at, it's wrong. It's like this, and it almost becomes to the point where they're afraid to do something because they're unsure whether or not this is the best strategy, right? And it's like, but what I like about your way is like you were convinced. You said, no, it got me to buy, right? If I needed it, I was going to buy it. And, because you didn't really have, you didn't go in a book and it said, be different, do the opposite of what everyone else is doing when it comes to the marketing strategy, but that was intuitive to you. which I found really cool. And this ended up working for you as well.
Hugely. And like we were different again because the main thing is in our business, if you're selling a property, you want to be one of those 3 agents that are called out to the property.
Mm.
Because once you get out, we know we'll win the business because you're going to like me. You're going to like my team that are going to go out. So we know once we get called out to that valuation, we know then that we will get the sale of that property.
Mm.
Apologies, sorry. Someone keeps ringing me here. Apologies. Sorry, Darren. Sorry. I'm just going to delete this here. Sorry. Hopefully you can edit this out here. Sorry.
Yeah, we can edit. We can edit.
Sorry. Someone keeps ringing me, and I keep.
If it's a very big emergency, you can go ahead and take it. Don't worry, man. Like, feel free.
Apologies. I'm just going to tell him. So hopefully you can edit this out. Sorry, because he's just the type of fellow that's going to keep bloody ringing me here. So.
We'll edit.
Okay. Apologies. Sorry.
I'll just take a quick note. 1 second. 15, 18, just to make sure for the editor. 18, 17, 18. No, sorry, 42. That's the time now. 42 minutes. Okay, perfect. All right.
Brilliant. Sorry.
Yeah. So you were saying, you were talking about the strategy, social media.
Yeah. So like again, the way we were thinking there was that we just want people to remember. So if you're sitting at home on your own, or you're sitting there with your partner or whatever, and you're thinking, who's selling houses in the area or who's renting houses in the area? Geez, Ray Cooke, I see them everywhere,
Yeah.
And that was our strategy. Because if you went on social media or you were looking at a sports, Sky Sports or whatever it is, you would see one of our ads because we were doing sponsored ads and stuff like that the whole time. So you would just see us everywhere. You could be on Disney Channel and you'd see an ad popping up with us on it. You could be on your newspaper looking at whatever, and the sponsored ads, Ray Cooke, and you'd see me there just talking, doing a video. And again, we would get tens of thousands of views on our videos because people are clicking in, because people love property. And again, we got a lot of stick in the industry saying, oh, look at these Egypts, and it's a little bit unprofessional. Because what we would do is we'd just come along and we'd grab our phone and say, hi, Ray here, blah, 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 and we'll do a video. Whereas they were going off and spending thousands of euros at the time, and they'd have 5 people with a camera, and it'd be like a production, like for just one video, for a 2 or 3 minute video, where we just slap the video out and say, right, hi, I'm just at a property here, and we would do it. And again, because it was more real, and because we would show, we wouldn't just cut out the bad room at the back of the house or the garden was all overgrown. We'd show it and say, look, the garden is a mess, but look, you come in, you cut it down, or, the front of the house isn't great, but maybe tarmac the driveway or cobble lock it. And we were honest. So all of a sudden we started selling more houses. And then if we were viewing a house and let's just say our competitor had a house down the road, we would have 25 people at the viewing and they would have 2. Because more people are seeing our properties. So all of a sudden that took off and it exploded. And then it just, because we were doing so well from 2015 up to 2020, we opened another 4 or 5 locations around Dublin.
If I remember correctly, you're at 8 or 9 locations.
Locations across Dublin now, yeah.
8 locations,
yeah. So we went from 3 to 8 in 2022, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, that's huge. And social media was a huge driver there, but it makes a lot of sense, because I've seen, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but you mentioned it, Ryanair's social media, especially over the past few years. They post memes,
yeah,
right? And it's hilarious. I share some of these videos and the things that they put, because I've flown with Ryanair several times, London to Oslo, certain areas in Europe. And I'll share them because it's funny and they're memorable. And it's like, oh yeah, well, who can you fly with? Ryanair, because you think about them due to their marketing, right? And
they take the piss out of themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that we did as well. Something that we did as well. Like we would share blooper videos, or we would show this, or we'd show that, or we
point out the obvious.
Exactly, just little things like that. And then people are saying, do you know what? This isn't just a stuck-up guy in a suit, or I can't talk to him, he's unapproachable. Then they kind of realize, like, we would go out to value a house and we would have only maybe spoke to them over the phone for 2 minutes, but then you'd walk out to the house, and if just say there was 3 other agents there, they would say, oh, hi Ray, before I'd even introduce myself, because they had seen my videos. They know what I look like. They know my personality. If I did a video just on the market or a tip on something or this or that, whereas they never saw the other agents. So they're actually looking forward to seeing me, all the different agents that I had. And that was the power of social media. Like, it was huge. Like, people would say, I nearly feel like I know you already. I heard that thousands of times at thousands of appointments over the years. I feel like I know you. I've watched all of your videos, and it was massive. Yeah. And then people would say to us as well, oh, when you're selling my house now, you're going to do one of those videos for us now as well. I said, yeah, of course we are, And we do it every single property we put up, so, because they would think, oh, the other agents are only putting ones up that are worth €1 million, and their house would be worth 250,000. Oh, is my house good enough to go up? And we're like, of course it is, yeah. We put your house up, So, and that was again the difference with us and the other agents. The other agents are only putting up the eye candy properties, the nice red brick properties and big rooms and worth 2 or 3 million or whatever. We put up the property that was half fallen down. And then with social media, we always liked the negative comments because those are the properties that went viral. I was, oh, look at the state of this house, or look at this, or it's not worth 200,000, it's only worth €10. And then all of their mates, and our attitude was, then if Darren went on and made a negative comment, oh, look at this stupid house, or da 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 da, Darren's 200 friends on Facebook or Instagram would see it, and then they would look at it as well because it would come up in his feed at the time. And then lo and behold, they'd comment as well and say, yeah, Darren, there was a fella shot down the road because maybe it was in a rough part of Dublin, or this, and all of a sudden you'd have 200 comments. And then all of a sudden, when you look at the video before, we maybe had 3,000 or 4,000 views on it, and then that one you'd have 200,000 views on it because everyone was looking at it, So again, good comments and bad comments, whereas then other agents were afraid of bad comments. We're afraid of you coming in and being a negative comment, where we didn't mind that because the more people that commented, like what you think is a good
reach it got,
with property, it's very personal. What you think is your best property ever, and then you bring your sister out to have a look at it, and your sister's going to go, why are you buying here, Darren? I don't like here, but you're like, oh, this is my dream house, So property is very personal. So we didn't mind that, and we kind of we rode that wave of social media. So it was brilliant.
No, but that's really smart. I mean, a lot of people, they do get riled up, right, from certain things. And when they do on social media, they let the world know. It's like they'll comment, right? If it's neutral, if it's too neutral, if it doesn't inspire anyone emotionally, then you won't get that effect, right? So I think you did really well there. Then moving ahead then, right? Because obviously now you're at 8 locations. How many employees are you at? 50, 60? 70?
Between the 3 companies, we have, I don't know, maybe 65, 70 now at this stage.
65, 70.
Yeah, they're directly employed, and then we'd have probably another 30 or 40 subcontractors, maybe.
And you mentioned to me on our previous call that you had no signs at all of slowing down. What is your vision? What is your goal?
At the moment, we're number 3 in Dublin. So I want to be number 1. So simple as that. So we're already looking at our location number 9. Actually, we're probably looking at have another 15 or 16 locations in Dublin, realistically. And then we probably will go nationwide. Now, who knows? I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. But the plan is to, in the next 5 years, to open. We already have the locations earmarked. We just want to get the right offices or right locations in those towns and villages. So once we can earmark them, we're doing a huge recruitment drive as well to get more staff on. So and it's exciting times. Yeah. So maybe hopefully, if I'm talking to you in a couple of years' time, Darren, we'll probably be double what we are now.
Yeah. So the number 1 in Dublin, your goal is to go nationwide as well. How do you do that? You're mentioning opening up new offices and hiring more people, but is there anything specific in terms of strategy that you can share that you would actually do?
We look at areas that are obviously there is a high volume of sales in, and we go into those areas. Simple as that. We try to go into areas that we're already probably strong in, but we don't have an office presence in. But we know there that we could maybe double or treble our sales if we open that location. And then there's other locations we're not strong in at all, that we have to go into as well. And we know that if we go into there and we can get maybe a 10% of the market share, we'll still make our money, because at this stage we're selling properties in every area in Dublin. It goes in kind of postcodes in Dublin. I don't know what you call it where you live. So different so we're selling properties in this year. 2024 was the first year we sold in every postcode in Dublin. So which is great. Now it might have been only one sale or two sales, but it was the first year that we did. So that means we were spread out, which is great. So it's not as easy as it sounds. And if it was, then everyone would be opening offices. Luckily enough, if I see something tomorrow, I can act on it straight away. We just copy our offices. So the same floor, same desk, same wallpaper. We already have our website. We already have our branding. We know how to set up an office. We have our CRM system. Whereas if Darren wants to go off and set up an office, it's a lot more expensive for you to set up an office than it is for me, because I already know what I'm going with. I already have the plan from our other 7 or 8 offices that we've done before. And the mistakes that we've done on them, we've kind of rectified them to go again,
It's kind of like copy-paste system that you've built right now. It's a system that you can copy.
It has worked for us.
Yeah, and it's a proven model, essentially.
Yeah. Also as well, you touched on team as well. It's so important to get the right team into it. I find that my team work a different, and they have a different mindset to other estate agents. So we have started, anyone that's working for me now, with the exception of one person, out of the sales agents, I prefer to get them in younger and train them up.
Because, as opposed to getting like a college degree person.
Or go and working with another agent. Because a lot of times when they work for another agent, they pick up bad habits. So it's like when you learn to drive. You're driving with your two hands either side of the steering wheel, and then after a month, you're down like this driving, you pick up bad habits. So it's the same in work, you learn the proper way to do things, but then you start adapting it to maybe a shortcut or this or that. Whereas we know that we train our staff really, really well, the way that we want them to do things, the proper way. Communication is huge in our business. And so many of them think communication is sending a WhatsApp, or sending an email. You have to pick up the phone and talk to them. You have to go out and talk to Darren and find out, does Darren have children, or does he have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever? Is he into football? Does he like Manchester United or Liverpool or Ajax or AC Milan? And all of a sudden you get a bit of a relationship with him, and then all of a sudden you're talking to Darren for 10 minutes and you're talking to him 8 minutes about his child, and then you're talking to him for 2 minutes about his house, and that's what Darren remembers, the client. And it's about the customer experience, like I said to you. Yeah. If the customer has a really good experience, they're going to keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back,
And one of the bad habits that other real estate companies have that yours doesn't have sounds to me like they're not as good when it comes to communication. Or is there anything else that really sticks out there that...
Complacency.
Okay.
At the moment, Ireland is the property prices are higher than the Celtic Tiger or the 2007 boom now in Ireland. Okay, so there's a lot of people think that it's always going to be like this, or they always think when they put a house up for sale that they're going to have 50 people that will want to view it. It's not always going to be like that. Complacency, and then they treat 49 because only one person can buy it. They treat the 49 people badly. So I'm not saying all agents do that, but I think they're complacent in relation to how they communicate with these people. And we kind of fell into that in COVID times as well, a little bit, but we've got to get out of it as well. And you have to train your staff to make sure that they're better. And I'm not perfect. I can guarantee you in 2 months' time, I'm going to be a better version than I am now, because I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to keep learning. And my staff and I are always going to put our hands up and say, do you know what? I'm not good at this. Let's improve at this. Or do you know what? I can be better at this. Or I made a mistake. Where did I go wrong? And I have a big thing as well. Failing isn't a bad thing. Failure is feedback on where you can improve.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's huge. I like failure, because I do, because I then know that, okay, this is where I went wrong. Let's fix this and fix that, and now I'm gonna improve, you know, or and like it's look, you have to keep moving forward, you know, like, and this is the problem as well. People like to just, oh, I'm making loads of money now, and I keep, but as soon as you stop, you're going to start going down.
Yeah.
So this is where I want to keep going, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe I'll fail. Maybe we'll talk in 5 years' time and I still only have 8 locations, or maybe I've had to close a couple of locations, or there's a downturn again, or this or that. But you know what? I'd be fair to go off and do that and fail than not to try it at all.
Yeah, and that really goes, first of all, yes, I do agree with you there. It was funny the way you said it. It's like you almost prefer to fail more than succeed, but you need that, you still have to have that balance, right? Because you also want to succeed. But I think what you're saying as well is when it comes to, I would rather try than not, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is such an important thing for anyone who has a level of entrepreneurship inside of them, right? It's that rather go out and do it and try and then fail as opposed to not trying because you're afraid of failing,
If
right?
you want to put a sports analogy on it, like, was it Michael Jordan? You know, he's missed more shots than he scored. Is he a
Mm,
failure?
mm,
You know, he's I think in final matches or going for the final point, he has missed more than he got. But the people only remember the ones he got.
yeah,
You know, and
that's the thing.
and I remember listening to Ronaldo before as well. He said, like, people didn't see me when I was hitting free kicks and I couldn't score a free kick for, 6 months, or, whatever. And then all of a sudden he starts putting them in the top corner,
Mm,
So would you class him as a failure?
mm,
So it's the same going back to me. I don't class myself as a failure because something didn't work. It just gives me feedback to say, let's do something different, or let's work on something different, or let's go in a different direction, or let's work harder. Let's do
mm,
something different. Or sometimes I need to change the person in my team who's doing it, and say, okay, that didn't suit him. Maybe he's better suited over here, and then we'll move him here, and whatever. You're moving the jigsaw around to
mm.
improve things. And again, you have to put your hands up and sometimes say, you know what, I failed at that, but now I'm going to succeed, and keep moving forward.
I was going to ask you as well, for any entrepreneur or someone who's wanting to start out in real estate, what advice would you give them? And I think this is an amazing piece of advice, but is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No, like, you need to be, you need to be resilient,
Mm,
because in sales, for every 20 people you talk to, you're going to get 19 no's and one yes.
mm,
So you need to be resilient and not be, and this is a problem with some of the younger generation now, because growing up, they just heard yes, 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 yes,
yeah.
yes, yes from their parents. And now all of a sudden they're 23 leaving college. They've never worked a job. And now all of a sudden they're coming into work in an industry where things isn't just yes, 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 yes.
That's a
You
lot of,
fall on your bum more times than not, or fall flat on your face. You
yeah.
make an idiot of yourself, because it's called experience in life.
Mm,
And to get into sales now, I just think there that you have to have the right attitude. And my attitude was always, I mightn't be the smartest fella sitting at this table, or I mightn't be the smartest fella in the room, but I'll outwork you.
mm,
I will outwork you. No one
mm,
will outwork me. And even to this day, no one will outwork me. I'm
mm,
working now. I'm thinking of stuff in work when I'm talking to you. I'm working, 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 working. Again, we spoke off air before the podcast about holidays. It's very rare that I switch off.
yeah.
I could be looking at something on TV, like I said to you about the Harvey Norman thing earlier on, and I got to go. If I switch that there now, I could do this I could do this myself, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, Or I might see, I might go in and see a little business, like, especially when I had younger kids. I'm kind of going, they've 400 kids in here. Jesus, that's €10 a kid. My God, that's 4,000 a day, 5 days a week, 20 grand, da 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 da, multiplied by 45 weeks of the year. Jesus, like, it's a great, how much is that costing? How much is it, and that's where my head is, even though I might be at a kiddie place with the kids and they're on climbing frames or whatever, I'm kind of thinking, geez, okay, and you're doing notebooks, you have the calculator out, and that's the way my head works. So you have to be, I think if you want to be successful at business, you have to be that way inclined. If you just want to be successful at your job, I just think you need resilience,
Mm,
and I just think that you keep going forward. Because sometimes you're going to get a bad boss. Sometimes
mm,
you're going to get a bad manager. Sometimes you have a run of luck that doesn't go in your favor. But I don't believe in luck. I think you make your own luck. I think if you work hard enough, you'll keep getting those opportunities. Or like in my past, if all of a sudden you have a bad boss and it's not working for you, change the scenery.
Yeah.
Go somewhere else. Go somewhere else. And then if the scenery is still the same, then you need to look at yourself. Because maybe it's not the boss, maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's your mom and dad telling you, oh no, you're Messi and you're Ronaldo, you're the best in the world. Well, you're not. You need to learn your craft. And I just think just make sure that you're a team player. Always be a team player. Don't be an individual. Be a team player, Because again, it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or you're an electrician or you're a podcaster or whatever it is that you are. If you're a team player, I love seeing people do well. I really do, because I get a buzz from seeing people do well.
Is there anyone that that talks or teaches about being a team player in case someone doesn't have that level of that skill or that trait naturally built in?
No, like again, and this is where there's loads of potential. There's loads of openings for people there. No, there's no one out there being a team player. I just think it comes with you that you just have to. It's going instead of just giving 100%, you're giving 110. And I just think you go the extra mile. And I'm a big believer in karma. I think you put into this world, you'll get something back. And sometimes you have to do stuff for people that you're not doing it for people that they give you a pat on the back. You're doing it because you want to do it for yourself, and you're trying to do something good for them. And eventually some people won't return that favor, but I think most of the people will return that favor, and it will come back to you. So I just think if anyone's starting off, have the right attitude, have resilience, put the work in, and it will come back to you. Because again, especially in the sales job, it doesn't matter if you're 24 or 44. If that 24-year-old is coming in and they are on fire, they're going to be earning more than the 44-year-old. And that's the good thing about our job.
It's amazing. Ray, I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today. I learned a lot, and I think you were great, man. So I really appreciate you for coming on, and thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Great questions. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
Thank you.